$38 trillion. That's what America owes. But here's the twist. Most of that debt is owed to Americans. Welcome to the most profitable illusion in human history. Picture this. America's debt clock just crossed $38 trillion. Europe carries $14 trillion on its books. Japan's drowning in nearly $9 trillion. Even cash-rich nations like Saudi Arabia and export giants like China are buried under mountains of borrowed money. But here's what keeps economists up at night. If literally everyone on the planet owes money, who's actually getting paid? Welcome to Limitless, where we decode the money matrix that runs our world. Debt isn't just numbers on a spreadsheet. It's the invisible operating system powering everything from your morning coffee to global wars. Strip away the complexity and you'll find something disturbing. The world doesn't owe money to some shadowy creditor. It owes money to itself. But that doesn't mean we're all in this together. Some people collect interest, while others just pay the bills. Let me show you how this machine really works. We're sitting on $315 trillion of global debt right now. That's triple the size of the entire world economy. To understand how we built this house of cards, we need to rewind to when debt wasn't a feature of modern life, but a revolutionary weapon of war. London, 1690. England's bleeding gold fighting France. The king makes a deal with wealthy merchants. Loan me money now, and I'll pay you interest forever, using future tax revenue. To manage this arrangement, they created the Bank of England. This changed everything. Suddenly governments could spend tomorrow's money today. Lenders got something even better than gold. A government promise they could buy, sell, and trade like currency. The government bond was born. France watched and copied the model. The Netherlands perfected it. America used it to fund independence and then continental expansion. Debt transformed from a sign of weakness into proof of power. Empires used to conquer land for treasure. Now they issued paper promises to harvest interest payments. The battlefield moved from physical territory to balance sheets. Flash forward 3 centuries, and debt has become the world's most traded commodity. America's $38 trillion, Japan's $9 trillion. Global borrowing increases by roughly $1 trillion every 100 days. Every nation borrows, every bank lends. Every citizen through taxes and savings plays both sides of the equation. But if everyone's playing both roles, where does the chain actually end? Let's follow the money, starting with the United States, because American debt isn't just national infrastructure, it's global plumbing. Of $38 trillion, about half is publicly traded, meaning owned by investors rather than government agencies. 2/3 of those investors are American institutions, banks, pension funds, insurance companies, and the Federal Reserve itself. The remaining third, roughly $9 trillion, sits overseas. Japan holds about $1 trillion, China around $800 billion. Then the UK, Luxembourg, and Belgium. So when someone says America is indebted to China, they're technically correct, but misleading. That represents only about 2% of total obligations. Most American debt is owed to Americans. The Treasury prints bonds. Domestic banks buy them. The Federal Reserve often purchases them back, creating fresh dollars in the process. American taxpayers fund interest payments that flow into American retirement accounts. It's a financial Ouroboros, a snake eating its own tail. The debt exists, but the creditor is mostly a mirror image of the debtor, and this circular flow isn't uniquely American. It's the global standard. Japan buys U.S. Treasury bonds. America funds European operations through the IMF. Europe lends to developing nations via the World Bank. Those developing nations then purchase Western bonds to store foreign currency reserves. Imagine a poker game where every player borrowed chips from the person next to them. The game continues smoothly, as long as nobody tries to cash out. Everyone holds someone else's IOU. Every promise backs another promise. But there's another player at this table with more power than any government. The market itself. Behind every government bond sits an ecosystem of hedge funds, pension systems, sovereign wealth funds, and central banks controlling tens of trillions in assets. These institutions determine which countries borrow cheaply and which pay premium rates just to survive. When they lose confidence, currencies crater, governments collapse, and entire economies get restructured overnight. Voters choose politicians. Markets choose which politicians get to keep their promises. And the ultimate market maker, the priest of this financial religion, is the central bank. Central banks don't just manage debt, they manufacture it. Every time the Federal Reserve or European Central Bank purchases government bonds, they create new money as payment. One institution's liability becomes another's asset. Every dollar circulating in the economy represents debt somewhere in the system. There's no such thing as debt-free currency. Every bill, every coin, every digital transaction has an invisible IOU stamped on it. For decades, this loop sustained itself through one ingredient: confidence. As long as investors believe governments will pay interest, even if never the principal, the machine keeps humming. But what happens when that confidence cracks? Greece, 2010. The government couldn't pay its debts. Bondholders panicked. Interest rates exploded. The European Central Bank and IMF stepped in with rescue packages that came with brutal conditions. Austerity measures, tax increases, spending cuts, mass unemployment. For an entire generation of Greeks, the word bailout became synonymous with sacrifice. Argentina defaulted repeatedly, turning debt into a generational curse. Sri Lanka recently experienced fuel shortages and political chaos when they ran out of foreign currency to service loans. When the system fractures, the invisible creditors suddenly have faces. The rating agencies, anonymous bondholders who can strangle entire nations, yet even after collapse, the cycle restarts. New loans replace old ones. Debts get restructured. The machine reboots with different names on the same balance sheet. That's because 21st century debt wasn't designed to be repaid. It was designed to be perpetually rolled over. This isn't conspiracy theory. It's official policy. When you take a personal loan, you're expected to pay back the principal, but governments play by different rules. They treat debt like a subscription service, issuing new bonds to pay off maturing ones. Economists call this refinancing. Interest becomes the actual product, the rent charged for maintaining stability. The global economy now depends on that rent payment like a shark depends on forward motion to breathe. The system runs on confidence, not repayment. America will never clear its $38 trillion tab. It will refinance forever. Japan's been rolling over debt for decades, now exceeding 250% of GDP. Yet their government bond yields remain near zero. Investors aren't waiting to get repaid. They're waiting to renew the contract. Why? Because government debt represents the safest collateral in existence. A U.S. Treasury bond isn't viewed as a liability in financial markets. It's treated as an asset, the foundation layer of the global financial system. Pension funds hold it. Banks use it as security. Central banks treat it as equivalent to cash. The system requires governments to never pay off their debt because if they did, the world would lose its most trusted financial instrument. Imagine if Washington somehow paid down every dollar of debt. Banks and funds globally would suddenly lose their most stable asset. The dollar supply would contract dramatically, triggering deflation and economic collapse. Eliminating the debt would destroy the very mechanism that makes the economy function. So governments do the opposite. They keep issuing more debt. Not recklessly, but rhythmically. Debt becomes capitalism's heartbeat, pulsing through every pension plan, mortgage, and market on earth. That's why when politicians promise to balance the budget or eliminate national debt, they're selling fantasy. The actual goal isn't debt elimination. It's keeping debt sustainable, serviceable, and desirable enough that the system never stops believing in it. Because once belief evaporates, the numbers become irrelevant. Confidence collapses, interest rates spike, and an economy built entirely on rolling promises grinds to a halt. Here's the real secret of sovereign debt. Repayment was never the plan. The plan is keeping the world believing repayment is possible. It's a closed loop of trust. As long as that trust holds, the numbers can expand indefinitely. But trust isn't distributed equally. When economists say we owe it to ourselves, that's only half the story. Interest payments don't flow evenly through society. They flow upward from workers and taxpayers to the institutions and investors holding the debt. Debt isn't just a transfer between countries. It's a transfer between economic classes. That's why global inequality and global indebtedness rise in parallel. The system rewards debt owners and punishes debt payers. If this sounds familiar, it is because you're seeing the same patterns scaled up from households to nations to the entire planet. Creditors aren't villains. Debtors aren't victims. They're two sides of the same engine. The problem emerges when the engine runs out of fuel, when new borrowing can't keep pace with old promises. That's when the question of who's the creditor stops being academic and becomes personal. Because at the top of this global pyramid, there isn't one face to blame. It's not China. It's not Wall Street. It's not the IMF. It's all of them, and all of us. The modern financial system has transformed debt itself into money. Governments issue it, banks multiply it, investors trade it, and citizens depend on it. The line between debtor and creditor has dissolved beyond recognition. Debt once meant servitude. Today it means equilibrium. But if that equilibrium ever breaks, if confidence shatters, the illusion ends, and we all remember what debt actually is. A promise that can be kept forever. The question isn't whether the system will eventually break. The question is, what happens to your wealth when it does? Stay sharp, stay informed, and keep pushing your limits. The debt machine keeps spinning, but your understanding doesn't have to stay trapped. Subscribe to Limitless and learn how money really works before the system teaches you the hard way.